With COVID-19 impacting people around the world, organizations everywhere are pivoting to remote work and putting the safety of their employees, customers, and communities first. We recognize the vital role that technology plays in supporting people and organizations each day, today and in the long term. As such, we've put together this guidance to help you enable remote work so your employees have access to the tools, resources, and expertise they need in this challenging time. Hello, my name is Neil Duplessis. I am a Cloud Solutions and Security Architect at BUI, and welcome to this Secure Remote Work webinar on how to rapidly deploy a powerful remote work capability without compromising security. Looking at what we'll be covering today, first we're going to have an overview of secure remote work. Next, we're going to look at the art of the possible, how to meet and collaborate from home. Next, we are going to look at solution considerations, all the things that we need to take into account for deploying a remote work solution. Of course, cloud identity and identity security is paramount to such a deployment. Not only do we need to look at identity security, but also security within Teams itself. So there are various security settings within Teams, and we're going to have a look at the important ones there. Lastly, user adoption, and so Teams adoption is critical to the success of any such project. We've got quite a bit to cover, so let's get started. Okay, let's start with an overview of secure remote work. What you're seeing today in this webinar is an excerpt of our full-day Secure Remote Work workshop. The goal of the workshop is to help customers to rapidly deploy remote work scenarios to empower employees to stay connected while maintaining security and control. As far as the scope is concerned, we're going to look at enabling a cloud or hybrid identity with single sign-on and self-service password reset. Of course, a rapid deployment of teams, including guided checklists and activation, installation, and configuration. Providing an adoption kit, in other words, end-user training, workload introductions, and support resources is included. And lastly, providing secure access to teams, applying that baseline security like conditional access and MFA. Setting a destination is important by defining business outcomes and use cases. It's also important to know just what success looks like, so you'll know when you get there. The outcomes of the workshop is a prioritized, actionable plan to quickly move to a secure remote environment, an environmental assessment, and identification of potential blockers and challenges. So we want to make this webinar experience as interactive as possible, so we've included these audience polls, and this is the first one. So what best describes your current remote working environment? Would you say that we are already using Teams and it is properly secured against threats from identity and malware attacks and against loss of data confidentiality? Or we are using Teams but we're unsure of end-to-end security? Or we are using an alternative to Teams? So use the poll interface to select your answer. Alright, so let's move on to the art of the possible. Meet and collaborate from home. Teams is the hub for teamwork in Microsoft 365, bringing together everything a team needs into one place, including powerful online meetings with video and screen sharing, chat and collaboration with the power of Office 365 applications, and fully customizable with the ability to create and integrate apps and workflows that your business rely on. So teams, of course, allow us to collaborate with people inside and outside our organizations. So firstly, we can do one-on-one and group chats. So chat in Teams is fast, intuitive, and has a built-in functionality that's easy to adopt. Chat with our colleagues one-on-one or pull together up to 250 participants in a single chat. You of course can share your screen, easily promote a chat to a phone or video call, and add someone to a chat and share all or part of the chat history uh, for each participant added. Of course, we can also co-author files and keep track of the conversation, and we can do this at the same time. So that means creating documents, sharing and editing them together in the team. We can also edit files together in real time, whether you are editing in Teams, in a browser, or working on the file on your desktop application. You can be confident that you and your coworkers are working on the latest version. Make sure everyone on your team has access to all the necessary files. Simply place those documents in the shared file space in the channel. Teams supports 320 different file previews, so you can open and preview content associated with the app installed. You can also organize teams by project channel. A team can be created for an entire organization, a specific department, a specific project, or even just an interest group. Within that team, channels are dedicated sections to keep conversations organized by specific topics or projects. Some teams choose to create channels to organize different departments or work streams. Others choose to create channels to track the progress of individual projects. It's common to work on teams with contractors, consultants, or other types of people outside the boundaries of your organization. Guest access allows the people to fully participate and collaborate right along with you and your team. Teams, of course, also allow us to participate in interactive online meetings with video and chat. So you can have a conversation with a colleague or a customer. Participate like you are in the room, whether you are on the go, at home, or actually in the office. Team meetings are easy to join from a variety of devices and platforms. You can invite anyone with an email address to join you in a Teams meeting. Anyone can join a Teams meeting on the web via a plug-in free experience with Chrome and Edge browsers. Turn on your webcam and keep the focus on you, not what's behind you or in the background, but on you. We can also implement blur or custom backgrounds um, and also have real-time noise suppression to minimize distracting background noise, allowing you and others to focus on what is being said. Alternatively, you can also dial into a meeting with audio conferencing for those times when you may not have an internet connection. We can hold a team update or a brainstorming session. So meet and collaborate where you are with files and applications live. With built-in Office 365 apps, you can collaborate and co-author documents in real-time team meetings. Just because everyone is not in the same room doesn't mean you can't brainstorm on a whiteboard. Microsoft Whiteboard is integrated with every Teams meeting, enabling meeting participants to join in with touch or with their mouse and to contribute with digital ink. Notes documents are shared and digital whiteboards remain as part of the meeting lifecycle and can be referenced even after the meeting ends. Don't miss the meeting, even if you missed the meeting. With cloud recording, you can easily play back meeting recordings and even search transcripts within those recordings and jump to that place in the recording after the fact. We can also use this capability within Teams to deliver training or a workshop. So we can connect with up to 250 meeting participants, including those inside and outside your organization. Assign roles for your participants to determine who can do what and who can present in that meeting. We can share screens, share applications, even share videos with audio. And documents is also shareable with your audience. We can also take advantage of the native PowerPoint sharing to allow participants to browse through the PowerPoint presentation at their own convenience and then sync up back with the speaker when appropriate. Whether you're in a noisy environment or not proficient with the spoken language of the meeting, attendees can follow along with real-time captions. Of course, it doesn't stop there. Integrated applications in Teams, for example, Power Apps is the low-code application development platform that spans across Azure, Office 365, and Dynamics 365, as well as standalone applications empowering everyone, whether a citizen developer, an IT admin, or a pro developer, to collaborate and solve business problems and innovate faster. Bring in your data with over 300 built-in connectors, on-premise data sources, leverage AI Builder for insights, and engage your partners and customers through portals. We want to ensure that remote workers have all the tools they need to unlock their full potential right within Teams. So we're going to switch gears a little bit now and go into a Teams demo. So we're going to have a project team launch event and also a second demo which will deal with driving cultural transformation. So firstly, projects. While projects at even any given organization or department can be extremely varied and have many elements, we see these 6 elements as being core to most projects. You need to pull together your team, share pertinent information, set tasks and deadlines and also track them. Check in with your team. Collaborate on documents, especially collaborate at the same time on documents. And share consistent, up to date information and notes. So let's break down this in teams. We will look at an example project of producing a launch event, though these elements are applicable for most teams and projects. First, you need to pull together your team. This may be the same team you work with on a regular basis, or this may be a cross-functional team or task force. With Teams, you can create a team of people from within and outside your organization, and then organize channels underneath to keep work organized by specific topics or projects. You need to make sure that you are all on the same page by sharing pertinent information and documents. In order to make sure that everyone has access to everything necessary, you simply place those documents in a shared file space for the project. And because our customers work with many different types of content, Teams supports lots of different file previews. So you can open and preview content without having the associated app installed, all right within Teams. Assigning tasks and tracking deadlines is crucial for most types of work. Our customers can use whichever method suits them, whether that is by easily plugging in an app that you already use, like Trello, Jira Cloud, Confluence, or using the already integrated planner, which helps you organize and track your work visually. It is critical to have regular meetings to check in on progress. Sometimes teams are able to meet in physical meeting rooms. Sometimes people need to dial in. Regardless, the startup process of a meeting should take 5 seconds, not 5 minutes. With Teams, it is easy to schedule a meeting whether you are creating the invitation from Teams or Outlook or on your phone. And joining a meeting is as simple as one touch, whether you are joining from your mobile device, your PC, or a conference room. Working on a project together most often requires creating documents together. Teams allow you to read and edit Office documents right within the context of the project or conversation at hand. And because it is common to work on teams with contractors, consultants, or other types of people outside the boundaries of your company, guest access allows these people to fully participate and collaborate right along with you. With large and smaller teams, it can sometimes feel like we are all running at 100 miles an hour. But it is so important to have access to shared resources, like this shared OneNote notebook that allows us to stay abreast of the latest information or meeting notes. And like the rest of Teams, you can access that just as easy from your phone as from your computer. In this second demonstration, we're going to have a look at an example of driving cultural transformation. We're going to look at having inclusive conversations, driving team engagement, having town halls, and meeting with remote teams. Let's have a look at this in Teams. It is crucial to maintain a culture of openness, transparency, and inclusivity with our teams to promote a collaborative environment and ultimately people's best work. Conversations in teams are threaded and persistent, which allows all team members, especially those who have newly joined a project or team, to catch up on the context and understand how decisions are made. So, in this example, we have a conversation with a few people. We're inviting a new person, and we choose to include chat history with this new person. This is for a group chat as well as when we look at a channel conversation. Conversations in a channel are also threaded, with replies being kept together in conversations like this one. It also includes being able to work successfully with a global audience who may not all be comfortable with speaking the same language. So using the inline translation feature, we can engage with people from other cultures. We also have built-in features like praise that promote the recognition of great contributions. It is important to keep your team engaged, which is why we have built-in features like the ability to post eye-catching announcements to make sure that important image does not get scanned over in a channel feed. In fact, we have several elements of Teams that allow us to make conversations more personal and create a sense of workplace culture. The ability to easily include GIFs, pictures, and even create your own memes in a conversation. So in this example, we're creating an announcement here with a colorful background. And we can also use the praise feature to praise someone. We're going to say awesome to this person, type a personalized message, preview the praise, and then send it right within the channel. Our individual business leaders host quarterly team all hands to share their top of mind, report out on the business, acknowledge great work that has been done, as well as bond as a team. Since not everybody can make these meetings in person, we host them both in person and for remote attendees with Stream. Those meetings are then posted to a team channel for people to watch anytime. And with Stream's built-in artificial intelligence, a transcript is automatically created, which can also be shared so people can fast forward to exactly what they're trying to find. In a world where our businesses are becoming increasingly global, it is important to be able to effectively communicate with our partners around the world. So in Teams, your meetings can have captions in your preferred language, regardless of the language spoken by the attendees. So in this case, you can see live captions during the meeting, uh, not only used when you do not understand the language, but maybe also when when you can't hear properly where you are. These meetings are of course also shared within Teams, and the best feature of this is the ability to search. So you can search the transcript of this video, the meeting recording, and jump to exactly what you're interested in without having to sit through the entire meeting. Now that we've had a look at the art of what is possible in Teams, let's look a little closer at solution considerations. So here are the considerations that we are going to be looking at as part of planning a successful and rapid Teams deployment. The geographic footprint of both the organization's corporate offices as well as the work from home locations. Infrastructure at both of these locations, existing licensing level of the company, where you are with your Office 365 journey in terms of adopting Office 365 services like Exchange Online and SharePoint Online. Existing Teams or Skype for Business deployments are going to be considered. Meeting deployments, so specific solutions regarding meetings, and also solutions, for example, meeting rooms. The adoption of Teams is critically important, so driving user adoption, user acceptance, and adopting new ways of working. And lastly, a network review to make sure that we have what it takes to run successfully. So the critical success factors are summarized in three areas: network, Microsoft 365, and adoption and change management. From a network perspective, meetings within Teams has simple network requirements which allow you high quality meetings. Connectivity to the Microsoft Cloud service must be optimized to ensure a good user experience. In terms of Microsoft 365, it is of course the underlying framework for Teams. And lastly, adoption and change management. People are changing the way that they work. For success, both the technology change along with people aspects will need to be considered. So if we're looking at activation and enablement, the considerations of course is licensing considerations like we discussed before. Teams clients, so insight into different Teams clients available across all platforms, including desktops and mobiles, whether it's PC or Mac. Network readiness elements specifically geared towards remote work and the necessary configuration to optimize end user experience. Microsoft 365 licensing, of course, comprises three licensing models: the Office 365, Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Windows 10. Microsoft 365 licensing comprises all three of these components. Of course, Teams and related productivity applications is part of Office 365. However, we should also consider the requirement for security technologies as part of the EMS bundle. Things like conditional access, multi-factor authentication is provided in this sense. Also, advanced security is available with M365 E5, including Office 365 ATP, Azure ATP, Microsoft Cloud App Security, and also Microsoft Defender ATP. So these would be the advanced security solutions that can very easily also be used to protect Teams investments. So we discussed before the need for network bandwidth, and network bandwidth considerations are summarized in this table. Bandwidth of between 30 kilobits per second and up to even 2 megabits per second are required depending on the scenario. So starting with the lowest requirement, 30 kilobits per second is what is required for each peer-to-peer audio call. However, high definition group video calling can consume up to about 2 megabits per second. An important network consideration, of course, is implementing VPN split tunneling. So dramatic increases in the volume of remote work may cause performance issues for certain VPN configurations. And this is because all traffic is normally forced back into the corporate network regardless of destination. Implementing VPN split tunneling, of course, allows communication to the Office 365 cloud services directly from the client endpoint instead of routing all traffic through the VPN gateway back to the on premise network. Of course, in this configuration, traffic intended for on-premise locations still go via the VPN, but without necessarily disconnecting the VPN, traffic intended for Office 365 can go directly to those destinations. All right, it's time for another audience poll. How would you describe your readiness to adopt Teams? So you could say we are already using Teams and it's performing flawlessly with respect to call quality, Office 365 integration, and user adoption. Or we are not using Teams extensively yet, but we are ready from a networking, Office 365 integration, and user adoption point of view. Alternatively, we are not using Teams extensively yet, and we have either network or integration or adoption challenges. So please answer using the poll interface. All right, so now that we've had a look at solution considerations, let's look at cloud identity and security. So firstly, we are going to look at an identity overview. So available Azure AD integration options and authentication methods. Next, we are going to have a look at synchronizing identities using Azure AD Connect. So looking at Azure Active Directory integration scenarios, we've got three different scenarios that we normally look at. Firstly, cloud identity, where user accounts are simply created natively on Azure Active Directory, independent cloud identities. Alternatively, we have a synchronized identity, and this is by far the most popular or the one that we encounter the most, where we synchronize identities from Active Directory on-premise using Azure AD Connect to the cloud, so into Azure Active Directory. This enables single identity, enabling a same or single sign-on experience with password hash synchronization or pass-through authentication. So there's a few options available in synchronized identity. In a few cases, we also have federated identity, which uses the same synchronization model as in the synchronized identity model, but also includes federation. This enables single federated identity, enabling single sign-on experience and on-premise multi-factor authentication options. So understanding our cloud synchronization, our identity synchronization is one aspect. Also, identity security is an extremely important aspect that we focus on as part of this rapid Teams deployment. In the first place, we are going to look at self-service password reset. So the ability for users to reset their own passwords if they are locked out of their user account. Also, multi-factor authentication, we're going to look at that, and conditional access as a technique of implementing multi-factor authentication. So looking at some of the benefits of self-service password reset. So firstly, you save money because of ticket volumes in your help desk. It is not uncommon for companies to spend thousands per month on average for calls to the help desk simply for password resets. We are going to have the ability to save time. So firstly for users, so the ability to reset their own password on demand, and also for IT teams to not have to get involved in password resets. Lastly, and I think most importantly for us, it increases security. So it make the password reset process more secure and reduce calls to the help desk, which reduces opportunities for social engineering. The only people that love passwords are hackers. Passwords are frustrating to use. Alphanumeric passwords are hard to remember, difficult to enter on mobile devices. Passwords are not secure. Even the strongest passwords are hackable. Password spray, credential stuffing, and phishing are the most common attacks against passwords. Passwords are also expensive, according to Gartner, 30 to 50% of help desk costs are related to passwords. We need to take some steps to protect passwords that are in use, reduce prompts, and get users familiar with other types of credentials. So we're going to start by seeing how many of your users reuse passwords, or worse, set standard passwords all the time. Hackers know and exploit this vulnerability all the time. With Azure AD Premium, we help you ban particular passwords in addition to the global banned password list. We can also set lockout policies for entering the wrong password and use machine learning to understand normal user behavior and detect the level of risk. Passwords are the weakest link in a security chain and a single point of failure without any additional verification. That's why we believe strongly that if you only do one thing to help protect yourself, it should be to turn on multi-factor authentication, or MFA. MFA prevents 99.9% of identity attacks. We of course support a broad range of authentication options to fit the needs of your business and your users, including passwordless options that helps make MFA more convenient for users. If you are hesitant to turn on MFA, there are ways to minimize disruption and to make it a smooth transition for your users. With the right access policies, users are only prompted for MFA when it is necessary. You can also use self-service portals for quick registration and password reset. It is critical that only the right people with the right resources on secure devices can access your data from anywhere. Conditional access is an intelligent policy engine built for this challenge. Its robust controls allow you to define specific conditions for how users authenticate and gain access to apps and data. You can customize and manage automated policies and get reporting on the policies applied for each sign-in. Conditional access gives you the power to enforce the core principle of zero trust. Never trust, always verify. The zero trust security model relies on a security policy engine to make access decisions you can enforce throughout the digital estate. Conditional access enables organizations to fine tune access policies based upon contextual user, device, location, and session risk information. That gives you better control on how users access corporate resources. You can then use additional challenges such as MFA, terms of use, access restrictions to decide whether to allow, deny, or control access. Conditional access takes in over 40 terabytes of identity related security signals, including user behavior, location, state of device, application being accessed, and the risk score of the signing. Using machine learning, our technology analyzes the signals and determines the appropriate policy to apply for access to a resource, such as allowing, limiting, or blocking access, or requesting additional verification measures. For example, you might have a policy that requires MFA if the user attempts to access from a new location. When the user enters their credentials, an MFA challenge, such as, for example, a push notification from the Microsoft Authenticator app, prompts them to prove their identity before they are granted access. In today's complex modern work environment, conditional access provides protection without compromising productivity. Alright, it's time for another audience poll. How would you describe your identity security? So firstly, we have MFA enabled and enforced for all users, with the exception of certain authorized exclusions. Or we have MFA enabled and have a flexible but secure conditional access mechanism that enforces MFA when appropriate. Or we don't have MFA enabled and we use an alternative identity security mechanism. Or our identity security relies on passwords, and we have password complexity and expiry policies in place. Lastly, our identity security relies on passwords only. Please use the poll interface to indicate your answer. So now that we've had a look at cloud identity and security, we are going to focus on Teams security specifically. So in terms of Teams identity and account security, we've already looked at multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and self-service password reset. We should also be considering Microsoft Endpoint Manager for device management and device security. Of course, secure guest access for participants external to the organization, as well as external access is important security considerations. Teams meeting security specifically also allows us several options. Firstly, meeting options, roles of participants in a meeting, attendee consent for recording, meeting recording access after the fact, and channel moderation and controls. By means of illustration on how strict are you, we've created these three personas. Firstly, Bob, who works in the IT department of Woodgrove Bank. They usually use restrictive settings. Carol works in the IT department of Contoso. They always try to find the best balance between user freedom and IT control. Lastly, Erin works in the IT department of AdventureWorks. They want to drive productivity by removing as much barriers as possible. So in the first scenario, let's look at Teams and messaging security settings. You can see the settings there on the right. And the personas, we're going to start with Bob. As a regulated company, we are required to keep records of all activity in Teams. To make this easier, we are going to disable email integration and third-party file storage providers. Additionally, we disable GIFs and stickers to comply with our HR policies. Or we want to encourage as much collaboration in Teams as possible, so we enable email integration. We don't want the risk of information stored on third-party cloud storage, so we're going to disable those options. And lastly, we're a pretty relaxed company that likes to have fun while collaborating. Being an international company, we enable the ability to translate messages. So you can select one of these personas or, for example, do something more custom that fits your requirements. So for guest access and external access, first again, Bob, we need to be very selective on who we collaborate with. We will use allow lists for guests and external access to limit collaboration to specific domains. So only guest users from domains that we specify will be allowed to collaborate. We allow users to collaborate with external users. However, we currently prevent guest users while we establish our organizational collaboration culture in Teams. Or lastly, Erin, we allow communication with external parties. We do not want to impede our users' ability to do more. So again, we can be as restrictive or as open as we need to be in terms of guest access and external access. So we also get to create settings around creating teams, who gets to create teams and how can those teams be named, the naming conventions necessary. So starting again with Bob, we want to highlight the department a team creator belongs to. Therefore, we are using a prefix naming policy. Alternatively, we are using the blocked word list for teams names to be sure that no one pretends which department they work for. As an example, the HR department. We do not want anybody to create a team that includes the word HR department. Otherwise, creating teams are fine. And lastly, Erin, we neither restrict names nor who can create teams. If someone misbehaves, we'll use the audit logs to investigate. We can also control meeting settings. Firstly, we require all meeting participants to be identifiable, so we disable anonymous meeting join. We also disable recording and transcription services for certain users to comply with company policy. A subset of our users have access to sensitive information and we choose not to let them perform screen sharing. Or lastly, Erin, we find video and content sharing drive our meetings culture. We regularly work with external participants, so our policies make sure that all feature functionality in meetings are available to all users. So, of course, the least restrictive option. Continuing on from team security, let's have a look at how we protect the data inside Teams. So firstly, starting with identity security, access to Teams and then the data inside Teams is controlled through Azure Active Directory, including MFA and conditional access, like we discussed. Teams data is also encrypted in transit and at rest. Office 365 provides us with data loss prevention policies to prevent sensitive data from accidentally being shared outside the organization, for example. And this also applies to Teams. Sensitivity labels allow you to regulate who can access a team by controlling the privacy and guest settings for that team. Advanced threat protection helps protect users from malicious software hidden in files, including files stored in Teams on OneDrive and SharePoint. And lastly, Cloud App Security provides you with the tools to identify and mitigate suspicious or malicious activity, including, for example, large-scale deletion of teams or addition of unauthorized users. Compliance to regulatory and industry standards are also included, including compliance to standards like GDPR or HIPAA. Information barriers is part of the capability within Teams to protect business information within the organization. Of course, e-discovery, legal hold, content searches, all of that functionality is available and works across Teams. And lastly, retention policies, especially for files stored in Teams. So lastly, let's have a look at Teams adoption. So Teams adoption is founded on a few critical factors, for example, communications, training, and optionally establishing a champions network. Also, there is a tool called Advisor for Teams, which is a new tool in Teams Admin Center to help remove friction points and streamline the deployment process of Teams. So let's have a look at guidance and templates that's been made available to help you get started. So starting with the days leading up to the deployment of Teams, we can start with announcement email templates as provided as shown on the screen there that announces this to users and allows them to start discovering Teams, get access to training resources. Also at the same time, we want to enable the security elements. So use multi-factor authentication coming soon template to tell users that Teams is available for them. On the day of the launch, we can send a countdown, your first day in Teams email to help users feel productive quickly. Again, with the links provided and customizable templates as shown there. On the security side, we can send this email template called MFA is here, which helps you guides users to videos or registering for MFA and learning more about what this will mean in their day-to-day lives. We of course don't stop there, so a few days after the launch, we can send a tips and tricks email. So take the users from that basic understanding to a more advanced level of using Teams with the tips and tricks email. Of course, we are going to keep on reminding users to register for MFA, and at this point, we are going to get close to requiring MFA. About 7 days after the launch, we can send another tips and tricks email. Of course, this all these templates and information is provided, and of course, we are now going to require MFA registration to take place. Again, explaining the change to the users, and of course, still providing those links to training materials and information, online videos to help users with the transition. Of course, ongoing communication is important to drive user adoption throughout the process and prevent fall off of initial adoption. So, reminders, day in the life, further tips and tricks, all of these templates, and more deeper information about using Teams for more advanced scenarios is available, both in easy to understand formats as well as a little bit more deep dive formats. So let's have a closer look at Teams training materials to help you get started. Okay, so first, building your training strategy is essential for successful change. And training, of course, isn't a one-time thing. It needs to be continuous and include end users at every level of the company. We should focus on the why to make sure employees know why the change is happening. That's what's in it for them and why they're being asked to change. We should be using real work scenarios, so use tasks or business processes that are familiar to the audience and to draw them into the learning experience. We should be able to include also multiple formats. So training end users should take on multiple forms to accommodate different learning styles, geographical barriers, or even maybe resource constraints. And lastly, reinforce. Make the training stick with reinforcement options like on demand training, lunch and learn sessions, and new employee training options. So, looking at a few examples, we can start with M365 learning pathways. So, this is more from an administrative point of view. And you can use the links here provided to reach these even right now. Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways for accelerating end user training is also available. So it's a familiar experience with SharePoint communication site template connected to an online catalog of Microsoft curated end user training content. It's also customizable with M365 Learning Pathways, and it's of course easily installed into SharePoint. So on the day of the launch, we should be communicating the quick start guide. So this is used for novice as well as experienced users alike. It's a short two-pager that outlines the basic things of what you'll need to sign into Teams, start a conversation, pick a channel, start a meeting, and also just a quick guide to the aspects within Teams. So, like we said, as part of the adoption materials, post-launch, we can send regular communications with additional links, flyers, recommended training resources. And here's a few examples: or sort of join a Teams meeting, working from home tips, and video training, working with remote teams, which goes beyond just the capabilities of the product, but more about teamwork in general. All right, so we're nearing the end of our webinar. So we had a look at the overview of secure remote work, the possibilities, the different capabilities of Teams. We had a look at the solution considerations. What are those elements that we have to take into account before deploying Teams? The two components of security, both identity security as well as security within Teams itself. And we had a look at a few Teams adoption resources. So lastly, let's have a look at a call to action. So firstly, let's talk. Let's create this secure remote workshop, which is available. We also have, of course, professional deployment services available to take the plan that is the output of the secure remote workshop um, into action. And lastly, ongoing management services. So book a free session with us and see our website for the details. So bui.co.za/workshops, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. With that, I would like to thank you for attending this webinar, and we look forward to meeting with you. Thank you.